Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
The Valley of Lyris. 9 shimmered like a dream that never ended. Soft lavender light spilled across the land as twin suns hovered low in the sky, casting long, glowing reflections over the rivers that pulsed with bioluminescent currents. Trees with translucent leaves whispered in harmonic tones whenever the wind passed through them, and the air itself seemed alive, warm, responsive, almost aware. At the center of it all stood the heart bloom. It rose from the ground like a living crystal, its branches shaped like petals of light, constantly shifting in color, rose, gold, violet, and pale blue. Every member of the Ilari tribe felt its presence, not just as something they could see, but as something they shared. It was their origin. It was their connection. It was their certainty. And yet, for Aina, it was also a question. Aina stood barefoot at the edge of the central clearing, watching as the younger children played near the shallow pools. Their laughter rang out in soft, melodic bursts, blending seamlessly with the sounds of the valley. She should have felt at peace. Everyone else did. Instead, she felt restless. "You're thinking again." The voice came from behind her. Aina turned to see Lyra approaching, her closest companion. Lyra moved with the effortless grace all Ilari seemed to possess, her silver-tinted hair catching the light like threads of starlight. "I'm always thinking," Aina replied. Lyra tilted her head, smiling. "Not like this." Aina hesitated before speaking. "Do you ever feel like something is missing?" Lyra laughed softly. "Missing? From here?" She gestured around them. "We have everything. That's what everyone says. Because it's true." Aina looked past her, toward the distant ridges that marked the edge of the valley. Beyond them lay only haze and shimmering distortion. No one had ever crossed it. Or at least, no one talked about it. "What if it's not?" Aina murmured. Lyra's smile faded slightly. "You've been going to the ridge again, haven't you?" Aina didn't answer. That was answer enough. Later that day, the tribe gathered near the heart bloom. The air buzzed with anticipation. It was happening again. A birth. The crystal petals began to glow brighter, their light intensifying until the entire clearing was bathed in radiant color. The Ilari formed a wide circle, their voices rising together in a soft, harmonic chant. Something instinctive, something ancient. Aina joined them, though her eyes remained fixed on the bloom. The light pulsed. Once, twice, then a sudden burst. From within the glowing petals, a small figure emerged, cradled in strands of light. The chanting softened, shifting into gentle whispers as one of the elders stepped forward and lifted the child into her arms. The newborn opened her eyes almost immediately, calm and aware, perfect, just like all the others. The tribe smiled. Some laughed softly. A few knelt in quiet reverence. Aina felt the familiar warmth pass through her, the shared connection, the unity, the certainty. And yet, she frowned. "It's always the same," she whispered. Elder Viri, standing nearby, turned toward her. "And that troubles you?" Aina met her gaze. "Doesn't it trouble you?" Viri studied her for a long moment. Her presence was steady, grounded, like the roots of the valley itself. "No," she said simply. "Consistency is not a flaw. It is harmony. But how do we know it's all there is?" Aina pressed. "How do we know there isn't something else beyond us?" A subtle tension passed through the nearby Ilari. Conversations quieted. Viri's voice lowered. "Because the heart bloom gives us what we need. That's not the same as knowing. It is enough." Aina shook her head. "It's not enough for me." Silence lingered between them. Viri's expression softened, but there was something guarded behind it now. "Curiosity can be a gift," the elder said carefully, "but it can also lead you away from what matters." "And what if what matters is out there?" Aina asked, pointing toward the unseen beyond the ridge. Viri didn't follow her gesture. "We are not meant to seek beyond the valley," she said firmly. Everything we need is here." Aina felt the conversation closing, like a door gently but decisively shut. She stepped back, but her thoughts did not. That night, while the rest of the tribe settled into quiet rest, Aina slipped away. The valley dimmed into softer hues under the starlit sky. The twin suns had long since set, leaving behind a vast expanse of shimmering constellations unlike anything described in the tribe's teachings. Aina climbed the ridge alone. The path was familiar now. She had made this journey many times, though never openly. The higher she climbed, the quieter the valley became, until even the whispers of the trees faded into silence. At the top, she stopped and stared. Beyond the ridge, the world was not empty. It shifted. The air itself rippled like liquid glass, distorting whatever lay beyond. Occasionally, faint flashes of light flickered in the distance, brief, impossible glimpses of something that didn't belong to the valley's calm perfection. Aina's heart raced. "There's something there," she whispered. She stepped closer to the boundary. The ground felt different here, less alive, less connected. She hesitated, then reached out. The moment her fingers touched the shimmering veil, a sudden pulse shot through her, sharp, electric, foreign. She gasped, stumbling back as the air around her flickered violently before settling again. Breathing hard, Aina stared at her hand. It tingled, not painfully, but differently, alive in a way she had never felt before. A slow smile spread across her face. So there's something else. Above her, a distant star flared brighter than the others. She didn't know it yet, but far beyond that shimmering boundary, something was already on its way to her. And when it arrived, nothing in the valley would ever be the same. The next day began like any other. The valley glowed with its usual calm brilliance. The rivers hummed softly. The trees whispered, and the heart bloom pulsed in its steady, reassuring rhythm. If anyone noticed Aina's absence from a morning gathering, they didn't mention it. But Aina felt different. The memory of the boundary, the strange energy, the flicker beyond, still lingered in her skin. Even now, as she moved through the clearing, everything felt smaller somehow, contained, like the valley was no longer the whole story. "You didn't sleep." Lyra's voice broke through her thoughts again. Aina glanced at her, managing a faint smile. "I did. Not enough to stop you from staring at nothing." "I wasn't staring at nothing." Lyra folded her arms. "Then what were you staring at?" Aina hesitated. "The edge," she said finally. Lyra exhaled sharply. "Aina, there's something there," Aina insisted. "I felt it this time. It's real." Before Lyra could respond, a low vibration rippled through the ground beneath their feet. Both of them froze. The sound came again, deeper this time, like a distant roar building in the sky. "What is that?" Lyra whispered. Aina looked up. The sky, normally a soft gradient of violet and gold, was tearing open. A streak of blazing light cut across the atmosphere, trailing fire and smoke. It moved too fast, too violently, nothing like the gentle patterns of Lyris 9. Gasps spread to the valley as the entire tribe turned their attention upward. "It's falling. Is it part of the sky? Is it alive?" The object burned brighter, screaming as it tore through the air. Then, a deafening impact. The eastern ridge shook as something massive collided with the ground beyond it. A shock wave rippled outward, bending the glowing grasses, and sending flocks of winged creatures scattering in panic. The heart bloom flickered. For the first time anyone could remember, it dimmed. The tribe gathered quickly. Fear was unfamiliar to them, but confusion wasn't. And this was something no one understood. Elder Viri stood at the center, her expression tense but controlled. "Stay together," she instructed. "No one goes beyond the ridge." Aina's heart pounded. Beyond the ridge. That's where it landed. She glanced at Lyra, who was already watching her. "Don't," Lyra said quietly. Aina swallowed. "We don't even know what it is." "That's exactly why you shouldn't go." "What if it's what I felt last night?" Aina pressed. "What if it's connected? Or what if it's dangerous?" Aina didn't answer. She didn't need to. Lyra grabbed her arm. "Aina!" But it was too late. Aina pulled free and ran. The climb felt different this time. The air was charged, unstable. The closer she got to the ridge, the stronger that strange, foreign sensation became, like the boundary itself was reacting. When she reached the top, she didn't stop. She crossed it, for the first time, The world beyond was not what she expected. The land was rougher, less luminous. The glowing harmony of the valley faded behind her, replaced by uneven terrain and dimmer light. The air felt thinner, quieter, like something essential was missing. And then she saw it. A massive structure of dark metal, half buried in the ground, smoke rising from its fractured surface. Parts of it sparked and hissed, emitting strange, unnatural sounds. Aina approached slowly, her senses alert. "This isn't from here," she whispered. A sudden crack of energy made her flinch. A section of the structure shifted, collapsing slightly with a heavy thud. And that's when she saw him. He lay a short distance from the wreckage, partially obscured by debris. His body was still, his breathing shallow but steady. Aina's step slowed. Something about him immediately felt different, not just unfamiliar, completely unknown. She moved closer, crouching beside him. His features were unlike anything she had ever seen. His frame was broader, his structure more angular. Even the way he existed felt separate from the rhythm of the world she knew. Aina reached out hesitantly, her hand hovering just above his arm. "He's so different," she whispered. The moment her fingers brushed the skin, a sudden jolt, not painful, but powerful, like two completely separate energies had just collided. Aina pulled back, startled. At the same time, his eyes snapped open. They locked onto hers instantly. For a moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. Two entirely different understandings of existence, meeting for the first time. His expression shifted from confusion to shock. "You're," he started, his voice rough. "You're not." He stopped himself, blinking as if trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Aina tilted her head. "What are you?" He let out a weak, disbelieving breath. "I was about to ask you the same thing." They sat in silence for a moment. Both tried to process. Finally, he tried to push himself up and failed. "Okay, that answers that," he muttered. Aina instinctively reached out again, more carefully this time. "You're hurt." "Yeah, that happens when your ship falls out of the sky." "Your ship?" He glanced back at the wreckage. "That thing." Aina followed his gaze. "You came from inside that?" "That was the idea." She looked at him again, curiosity overwhelming caution. "You're not from here." "No," he said. "Definitely not." A pause. Then, "What is here?" Aina hesitated. "This is the Valley of the Ilari," she said. "And you're not supposed to be here." "Yeah, I'm getting that feeling." Voices echoed faintly from the ridge. Aina's head snapped up. The tribe. They were coming. She stood quickly. "Can you move?" He tried again, wincing. "Not fast." Aina looked back toward the ridge, then at him. A decision formed instantly. "You can't stay here," she said. "They won't understand." "Honestly? Neither do I," he replied. She ignored that, moving to his side and pulling his arm over her shoulders. "Come on." He hesitated. "Wait, why are you helping me?" Aina paused just long enough to meet his eyes. "Because you're the answer to a question no one else is willing to ask." Before he could respond, she started guiding him away from the wreckage. Step by step, they disappeared into shadowed paths beyond the crash site. Hidden from view just as the first members of the Ilari reached the ridge. Behind them, the broken ship hissed and flickered. Ahead of them, something entirely new began to unfold. And for the first time in the history of the valley, the unknown had a face. The caves were older than memory. They stretched beneath the outer edges of the valley like silent veins, carved long before the Ilari had ever begun to ask questions, perhaps even before they had existed at all. Unlike the rest of Lyris 9, the caves did not glow. Their walls absorbed light, their air cool and still, untouched by the gentle pulse of the heart bloom. Aina had only been there once before. Now, she brought something the caves had never held. "Careful," she whispered, guiding Kale down a narrow slope. "I'm trying," he muttered, though his weight leaned heavily against her. "Your planet doesn't exactly believe in flat ground, does it?" Aina frowned slightly. "It's not my planet." Kale blinked at her. "Right? Sorry. Your valley?" She nodded once. "Stay here." She helped him sit against the stone wall. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence in the cave felt different than silence in the valley, heavier, more isolated. Kale exhaled slowly, looking around. This place doesn't feel like the rest of where you came from. It isn't, Aina said. That's why they don't come here. Lucky me. Hours passed. Aina brought water from a nearby underground stream and gathered soft moss-like growths to cushion him. She watched him carefully, studying every movement, every expression. He noticed. You're doing that again, Kale said. Doing what? Looking at me like I'm some kind of puzzle. Aina tilted her head. You are. He let out a faint laugh, then winced slightly. Fair enough. She hesitated before asking, Does it hurt? Yeah, he admitted. But I'll live. Aina nodded, absorbing that. Then after a pause, You said there are others like you. Yeah. And others like me? Kale smiled faintly. Yeah. Aina sat down across from him, her curiosity sharpening. Explain. He shifted slightly, trying to get comfortable. Okay, where I come from, people aren't all the same. There are differences. Two main types, I guess you'd say. Aina leaned forward. Types of what? Of people. She frowned. Why would there be different types of the same thing? Kale opened his mouth, then stopped. Honestly, he said, we've been asking that question for a long time. Aina considered that. So you don't know either. Not really. It's just how life developed for us. She glanced down at her hands, then back at him. Here, there's only one. Kale nodded slowly. Yeah, I notice. Meanwhile, back in the valley, unease spread like a quiet storm. The wreckage had been found. The being had not. Search groups moved to the outer areas, their usual harmony disrupted by something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. Elder Veery stood near the heart bloom, watching it closely. Its light flickered again. Irregular. Unstable. It's reacting, one of the Ilari said softly. To what? Another asked. Veery didn't answer immediately. To change, she said finally. In the caves. Kale had begun to regain some strength. He sat upright now, examining a small device from his suit, damaged but still faintly active. You're trying to fix your ship, Aina said. Trying being the key word. He replied, If I can get a signal out, maybe someone can find me. Aina's expression shifted. And then you'll leave. He looked at her. Yeah, he said gently. That's the plan. Aina nodded, but something about that answer felt off. She stood and walked toward the cave entrance, staring out at the dim light beyond. Everything you've told me, she said. It changes everything. Kale followed her gaze. Does it? Yes. She turned back to him. There's more than us. More ways to exist. More ways to be. That's usually how it goes. Aina shook her head. No, you don't understand. She stepped closer, her voice quieter now. We thought we were complete. Kale studied her expression. And now, he asked. Aina hesitated. Now I think we were just isolated. Days passed. The cave became a place of exchange. Aina brought stories of the valley, how the heart bloom sang, how every Lari could feel each other's presence, how nothing was ever truly hidden. Kale brought stories of the stars, of ships that crossed galaxies, of cities that never slept, of people who were endlessly different from one another. At first, it was curiosity. Then it became something else. Understanding. Aina began to notice things she hadn't before. How Kale's thoughts seemed separate from hers. How his emotions didn't ripple outward the way Lari feelings did. He was contained. Independent in a way she had never experienced. And yet, somehow, that made their connection feel stronger. More intentional. You're quiet, Kale said one evening. Aina looked up. I'm thinking. Should I be worried? Probably not. He smiled faintly. That's not reassuring. She sat beside him. When I'm near you, she said slowly, I can't feel you the way I feel the others. Kale raised an eyebrow. You can feel each other? Yes. Not thoughts exactly, but presence, emotion, connection. And you don't feel that with me? Aina shook her head. No. A pause. Is that bad? He asked. She considered the question carefully. No, she said. Then, softer, it's different. Kale leaned back against the cave wall. You say that like it matters. It does. Why? Aina met his eyes. Because for the first time, I have to choose to understand someone. That answer lingered between them. Back in the valley, the tension reached its peak. They are hiding it, one of the Ilari said. We've searched everywhere. Not everywhere, another replied, glancing toward the cave regions. Elder Viri stepped forward. No one enters the caves. Why not? A younger voice challenged. Viri's gaze hardened slightly. Because some places exist for a reason. And what if that reason is changing? The younger Ilari pressed. Silence fell. The heart bloom pulsed again, brighter this time, but uneven. Viri closed her eyes briefly. Then, prepare a group, she said. In the caves, Aina felt it before she heard it. A shift in the air. A disturbance in the quiet. She stood abruptly. They're coming. Kale looked up. Already, Aina nodded. For a moment, neither of them moved. Everything they had shared, everything that had begun to grow, hung in that silence. They won't understand, Aina said. Kale exhaled. Yeah, I figured that part. She stepped closer to him. Then we make them understand. Kale gave a small, uncertain smile. You make it sound easy. Aina didn't smile back. It won't be. From the cave entrance, distant voices echoed. The Ilari were close. Aina took a steady breath. The world she had known her entire life stood on one side. The unknown she had chosen stood on the other. And for the first time, she didn't hesitate. The sound of approaching voices filled the caves like a rising tide. Aina stood at the entrance, her posture firm, her heartbeat steady despite the storm building inside her. Behind her, Kale pushed himself upright, leaning against a stone wall. His strength not fully returned, but enough. Light from a valley spilled faintly into the cave, interrupted by moving shadows. They had arrived. One by one, the Ilari emerged at the threshold, silent, alert, their presence no longer soft and harmonious, but focused, guarded. At their center stood Elder Viri. Her gaze found Aina immediately. You crossed the boundary, she said, her voice calm but unyielding. Aina didn't look away. Yes. You brought it back with you. He came willingly, Aina replied. A subtle ripple moved through the group. Uncertainty, curiosity, fear. Emotions that didn't quite know how to settle. Viri took a step forward. Step aside. Aina didn't move. He's not a threat. You cannot know that. I do, Aina insisted. I've been with him. That caused more murmurs. You been alone with it? Someone whispered. Aina's expression tightened. He has a name. Viri's eyes narrowed slightly. That changes nothing. Behind Aina, Kale shifted, then slowly stepped forward into the dim light. For a moment, the entire cave seemed to hold its breath. The Ilari stared. He was exactly as Aina had described, and nothing like anything they had ever known. Their connection to each other, normally constant and flowing, stuttered, disrupted by his presence. He was outside it, separate, and that separation unsettled them. Kale raised his hand slightly, careful not to appear threatening. I don't want to hurt anyone, he said. I didn't choose to come here. My ship crashed. The Ilari exchanged glances. He speaks like us, one of them said softly. But he doesn't feel like us, another added. Aina stepped slightly in front of him again. That doesn't make him dangerous. It makes him unknown, Viri replied. And unknown is not the same as harmful. Viri studied her. You have changed, the elder said quietly. Aina didn't deny it. Yes. The tension in the cave thickened. The heart bloom's pulse could be felt even here now. Faint, irregular, like a distant heartbeat struggling to find rhythm. He is affecting the valley, one of the Ilari said. Aina shook her head. No, the valley is reacting to something new. That's not the same thing. It is enough, another insisted. The bloom is unstable. At that, Viri finally looked past Aina. To Kale. You will leave, she said. Kale nodded once. That's the plan. I just need time to fix my ship. And if we don't give you that time... Kale hesitated. Aina didn't. Then you lose a chance to understand what's happening, she said firmly. Viri's gaze snapped back to her. Explain. Aina stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with something deeper now, conviction. All our lives, we believed this valley was everything, that we were complete, unchanging, whole. We are, Veer replied. No, Aina said softly. We are isolated. The word echoed. Unfamiliar, uncomfortable. Aina continued. There are others out there. Different ways of existing. Different forms of life. He's proof of that. And what does that give us? Veer challenged. Aina met her gaze. Choice. Silence. The Ilari shifted uneasily. Choice. It wasn't a concept they had needed before. Kale spoke carefully. Where I come from, nothing stays the same forever. Change happens whether you want it to or not. That is not how this world works. One of the Ilari said. Kale gave a small, almost sympathetic smile. It is now. That didn't comfort them, but it didn't feel like a lie either. Veer closed her eyes briefly. For as long as anyone could remember, she had guided the Ilari with certainty. The heart bloom had always been steady. The world had always been known. Now both were shifting. She turned slightly, looking back toward the valley beyond the caves. Even from here, she could feel it. The uneven pulse, the subtle disruption in their shared connection. Then she looked at Aina and saw something she hadn't expected. Not rebellion, not defiance. Growth. You would risk everything we are, Veer said. Aina shook her head. No. She stepped closer. I would finally understand it. Time seemed to slow. The tribe waited. The valley waited. Even the distant pulse of the heart bloom seemed to pause between beats. Finally, Veer spoke. He stays. The words landed like a shock wave. Aina exhaled, relief breaking through her composure. But Veer wasn't finished. Until he is healed, she added, and only under watch. The tension didn't vanish, but it shifted from fear to something else. Uncertainty, possibility. The Ilari slowly stepped back, creating space. Some still watched Kale with unease, others with open curiosity. One of the younger ones took a hesitant step forward, studying him closely. You're really from beyond the ridge? She asked. Kale nodded. Yeah. She glanced at Aina. Is it bigger than the valley? Aina smiled slightly. Much bigger. The girl's eyes widened. Outside, the valley shimmered under the twin suns. The heart bloom pulsed again. Still uneven, but stronger, as if it, too, was learning how to adapt. Aina stood beside Kale at the cave entrance. You realize, he said quietly, this is just the beginning. Aina nodded. I know. She looked out toward the horizon, the ridge, the sky, the unknown beyond it. For the first time, it didn't feel distant. It felt reachable. Behind them was everything the Ilari had ever been. Ahead of them was everything they had never imagined. And now, they would have to decide what to do with both. The valley had not been broken. It had been opened, and nothing would ever be the same again.